Today we'll be hearing from Corey Colonna, who is the Executive Director of University Housing and Residential Life. That being said, I'll pass the mic on over to Corey. And Corey, the floor is yours.
Hi there, good afternoon. Go ahead and ready for that first slide. One more. So nice to meet you all. Thanks so much. I'm going to go over just some basics. First off, at this point, I'm assuming everyone who's in the call has actually applied. Our application process has three parts. Go ahead and hit the slide. The first part is the actual application, which is generally done between April 1st and about the middle of May. The second section is when around May 11th, I think this last year, we were able to notify people that you're in housing or you're going to be on the wait list. And in that time period, those who have been accepted into housing get to pick their roommates into the middle of June. And then the last time, one more slide, is early July on through this point, which is room selection has happened in early July, and now we're really in this situation now where people are communicating with their roommates, talking about what they're going to bring so they don't overwhelm their rooms. And then actual move-in is August 17th, 18th, and 19th. We have it split over 3 days. It's one of those things that we learned from the pandemic that a 3-day move-in was much better for just about everyone involved. So the first day is Wednesday morning. It's just half a day, all day Thursday, and then half a day on Friday. And there'll be activities and events for students and families during those days, and then into the evening for the students. Next slide. So I imagine many of you have already talked to or gone through the sessions with Student Health Services, but if you haven't, it's really important to make sure that people have an awareness of the special immunizations that are required for housing. The big one is that they're required to have meningitis A and meningitis B. One of the meningitis illnesses is less lethal, but more likely to that you would more susceptible to get. And so that is the one that's required for everyone, but we want to make sure that our students are extra safe. So we require the other one as well, which is far more serious, but far less likely to get. Meningitis B is the one I think that falls in that category. It requires a couple of vaccinations, sort of like we're used to now. Everyone knows the language of vaccinations now post since COVID, but I think it's a 2 or 3 shot series. Please make sure that students have that first shot before moving, and the other ones, as long as they get them in the right time frame, they'll be fine. That first shot will give them some of that that immunity. And again, it's really important. It's rare, but it's serious if it happens. One of our sister schools had that situation a couple years ago, and we decided to take action then and require it for our students as well. The other big thing for people to know is that if they have students who are under the age of 18, they need to fill out the consent to treat form and submit that through Student Health Services. Student Health Services would not be able to help one of our students, and we don't want that to be the case without parent permission. So let's get that parent permission up front. Next slide. Wait list. So some of you might be on a wait list, and so let's chat a little bit about this and sort of how we got here. We've seen a sort of a steady increase of students and demand for housing over the last five to 6 years. But in 2019, we had about 1,000 students that were on a wait list. Of course, we went into that wait list, so that was the worst case scenario, was about 1,000. And we built 500 beds since then. So we thought, hey, we're going to be good. We're going to have still some people on the wait list, but the wait list isn't going to be nearly as bad. We were really surprised this year that our wait list actually has bloomed to now over 1,500 students. Trying to figure out why, we honestly don't know. I think my best guess is that students who have had their experiences sort of less enjoyable, sort of nipped it a little bit due to COVID, or looking to have a better college experience, so maybe more applicants that way. I think it's cost of living outside of off of campus, I think is a factor in there. Of that 1,500 students, about 900 of them are returners. Returners generally we put on the back shelf to try to make sure that we're responsive and giving people at least their first year, if possible, an opportunity to live with us. If you're still on the wait list right now, chances are very, very slim that you'll be moved on to campus. As you can imagine, as we get further and further into the summer, people's plans get more and more solidified. So we will have some students who, have made decisions to go to other schools, bad decision on their part, but they'll make that decision, and that will put them in a situation where they're releasing a room that they had already taken. And then we have some people, as we go to the wait list now, some people of course have made other plans because they've signed leases and such, which is understandable. And so sometimes there's some moving through that process as well. So my encouragement is for people, if they're interested at all in housing, to stay on the wait list, but they should have secured a backup plan at this point in time. Go ahead, next slide. If you're still looking for off-campus housing, there are two places that we point students to. The first is at our off-campus website, which is hosted by rentcollegepads.com. They are a national organization that helps sort of go out and find apartments, and recognizing that the students in college might have a different lease option or lease time frame. So they're really sort of attuned to college schedules. What I like about this in particular is that when you go to find roommates, it requires students to log in. So, if you're looking for a roommate, to at least the two of you are both going to be Cal State Long Beach students, which I think is really helpful, and probably makes people feel a little more secure than having a roommate who might not be on campus. And then the other one that we point people to, and I point people this direction just because it is, we know it's student run, and that is the CSULB Roommate Finder. And so if you go to this Facebook page, it's a part of Facebook, and you join the group, you'll be able to talk to students who are also looking for roommates. Again, the reason I promote it is because we know it is student run. It's not some organization. It's the real deal. I can share that literally today I talked to a company that also does some housing stuff, and I talked to them. They said that they're going to be listing some additional housing on the CSULB Roommate Finder very shortly. So I know it's getting close, but keep looking at those resources and seeing what you can find out there. Next slide. Before move-in, so at this point, every student should have received an electronic waiver form. This is for it's an e-sign, e-signature waiver form. This is for beach days. It's a standard waiver, so it's, absolves us from all sorts of injury or whatever. There's not much that people could be injured at. There's going to be some picnics. I think there's one day at the athletic center, so there's a little bit of kickball or whatever the case might be. But we are required to make sure that we have students sign that. For people who are not going to be 18 by the 17th of August, we've sent a message as well to parents and to the student that they need to fill it out and have a parent sign. Other things that they need to do, if they haven't done already, make sure that they've sent their ID in for their photo in for their ID. If you received an ID when you've been on campus for a SOAR event and you're living in housing, we're likely to exchange that ID when you come in, because we take the IDs and make sure that they're ready to talk to the doors. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So that is really important that if you did not get an ID, which is sort of our general plan, we will give you the ID when you get to campus. Read carefully the moving guides. We'll be sending that via email if it's not already been sent. We also have a really good move-in website. So if you go to CSULB/housing on the right, you'll see a blue and red move-in link, and that should have pretty much all the information you need. And then at this point, they should be communicating with the roommates about what to bring and what not to bring. Next slide. So speaking about some of those things, I like to point a couple of things out to people to remember not to bring with them. So one of those things is anything that would potentially cause a fire. So when I do these presentations in person, I mimic what happens at my house when my fire alarm goes off because I broiled something and I made a little bit of smoke. We spend a lot of our time using a cookie sheet, pushing water out or air out of the room. We can't do that in the residence hall. If the fire alarm goes off, we have to evacuate the entire building. So that is really important that people don't bring anything like that. So no toaster ovens, no fondue pots, no George Foreman grills, no crock pots, no nothing of that sort. We actually don't allow students to bring microwaves or refrigerators, and that's because we provide them. So every room has a microwave, a freezer, and a refrigerator, and it's a micro fridge. What's nice about the micro fridge is that when the microwave is on, the refrigerator actually goes into like a dormant state for that minute or so while that popcorn's popping, and that saves energy and it's most likely to blow a fuse. The other thing that's nice about it is there's a smoke sensor in the microwave, so if that microwave popcorn starts to burn, it shuts itself down, and again, trying to do our best to avoid having to exit the whole building. A couple other things just to mention: bed risers are not allowed. That's not allowed by our fire marshal. So nothing that artificially, lifts the beds up. You can't put them on bricks or whatever. Most of our beds adjust already. They go up and down. Usually a rubber mallet is all you need to pop them in and out and move them up to a different site. Most of those are going to be set for you when you move in. And then the other thing to mention is no electric scooters. There's still issues with the lithium batteries there potentially catching fire. And then no wall hangings. So they make these beautiful tapestries that are like really cool, tie-dyed, that kind of thing. Those are beautiful, but this is not the place for them. Again, it's kind of stuff that our fire marshal will call us out on. So those are some of the things. I guess actually one more thing I'll mention: air conditioners and space heaters. No one's really thinking about space heaters when it's this warm, but air conditioners as well are not allowed. We have about a third of our buildings are air conditioned, the other ones are not. We encourage people to bring window fans, and I like those tower fans because they don't take up a lot of room and they can circulate a lot of air in the room. For the most part, it's really pretty calm and the weather isn't too hot, except for when we hit that Santa Ana winds time where everything shifts and we get some dry heat. But that lasts for a couple weeks, and then for the most part we get our nice coastal breezes that keep us cool. Thank you. Next slide. Move-in week. So I mentioned already it'll be over 3 days. There has been students have been assigned based on their building which day to move in. We've asked them to actually correspond with us about roughly what time they plan on being there. Try real hard to come to the time that you are assigned for a student to move in. It's not going to be perfect. We know some people are coming from long distances and it's hard to guess if you come a little early or come a little late. We're not going to turn you away, but the closer you can come to that time frame, likely the less you'll have to sit in line in your cars, because we try to bring cars up close to the buildings and unload things and then have the cars move back to a further spot. So again, we use the time frames and such that we have to try to spread some of that out. And we encourage a limitation of only 3 people in addition to the student with move-in. This is something we started with COVID as well. We recognize, in fact, with COVID, we only had 1 person initially, but we're in a little bit better place now. So we allow the student that's moving in and up to 3 more people. I know that there are aunts and uncles and cousins that want to see their student off, but they should do that at home before they come to campus. I'll talk a little bit about COVID, I think, in the next slide, but go ahead and hit the next slide. Okay, before that, I guess I'll talk a little bit about COVID. So we do ask students do an at-home test, 24 hours or less. They can do it the morning before they get in their car to move to campus. If they come back positive, we we ask students to stay home until they are through that infectious period. Every student on our campus is fully vaccinated, so they've had their vaccinations and at least 1 booster, with the only exception of a handful of students who have medical waivers to not be vaccinated, which is very small number of students. So if someone is sick, again, as we know, these boosters and vaccines are not foolproof. It's possible to spread, and we prefer to try to eliminate that as much as possible. If anyone in the moving crew that's coming to help has any symptoms, we ask them to stay home. Make sure you bring a mask, because we need students to wear masks when they come into the residence halls. Anytime they're inside, they want to have those masks on. Once students move in, there'll be some activities for them to participate in. We call them beach days. So some of those things are mandatory trainings. We have a requirement to do trainings on alcohol and other drugs and bystander, sexual assault bystander training. Those are federally mandated. And so that's part of that. But then also there are lots of opportunities for students to get to know the RAs, get to know the rest of their community, get to know people in their community. So that really, really officially is Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. But again, if you move in on Wednesday or Thursday, we'll have some activities those evenings as well to keep people occupied. So if a student calls home and says there's nothing to do, that's just not necessarily the truth. So tell them to get out there, and some of it's a little awkward. That's just the nature of things, but it's awkward until it's not. So get out there and try to meet new people. So that's what we call beach days. Good, next slide. So now your student's a resident. So each floor, each building, pod or wing will have a resident assistant. These are undergraduate students that have gone through a pretty rigorous selection process. They serve as mentors. They refer students to campus partners when needed. They ensure safety of the community. It's a great opportunity for your student in their sophomore, junior, or senior year. So I'm putting it out there right now. It also pays really well. It's one of the best paid positions on campus. So if students have interest in leadership and giving back to the community, this is something they should think about applying for late in fall semester, usually into the beginning of January is when we have those applications. Once they move in, they're going to meet with their RA, they're going to meet with their roommates, and we have them do roommate and suite mate agreements. What is this all about? So it's, sort of just working out the things that you don't necessarily think to talk about. So I might have a conversation with my roommate and say, I'm fine with you having friends over as long as it's not Wednesday night, because I have an early morning lab on Thursday and I need to make sure that I have time to study for that, or I need the quiet to sleep and get to bed early. Or I'm okay if we have guests over, but I don't want them to sit on my bed. That's one of those things that you just don't think about, but it's something you want to have a conversation with. I personally would not want someone sitting on my bed unless I told them that they could. Those are some of the things that happen during those first few days. They also will do a room condition report, which is them sort of telling us like how they found their room. If there's a problem that we need to fix, then we'll fix it based on those room condition reports. If nothing else, then it sort of serves as just a notification of, this desk had some wear and tear before I moved in. So at the end of the year, when it has some wear and tear, we don't think that their students responsible. And again, throughout beach days and throughout the rest of the year, they'll have opportunities to engage, participate in a variety of activities, and we encourage them to do so. Next slide. Transportation. So first and foremost, if a student is in a residence hall, they are allowed to have a car. There was a situation some years ago where that was not the case for first year students, but that has been revoked as of about 2019, I believe. So it's been a couple of years now. I will admit that there are still some things that are some websites out there that are ghost websites that are still giving out that wrong information. But if you find one of those, let us know. We go out and we try to figure out a way to kill it. It's very hard to keep things from living on the internet forever. But students are allowed to bring a vehicle. If they're taken off the wait list, or if they have moved from, say, Beachside to main campus, they need to make sure they have the right pass. So residential students need to buy a residential pass. It costs a little bit more because there's an overnight thing to it. If they're here over in the middle of the night and they don't have a residential pass, they're likely to get ticketed. So you want to make sure they get the right pass. And then I mentioned just a moment ago, Beachside has its own pass, which is different than the main campus pass. So make sure that they get the right one. If those of you who are considering to bring a bike, we're a very bike-friendly campus. There's a couple hills, but it's all doable. I just encourage people to bring bikes to make sure that they bring those really good, solid U-lock locks. I've worked at about 6 campuses, and every campus that I have worked on, bike theft is one of the #1 issues that we have for crime. It's just because they're easy access, right? The bikes are stored outside. With the exception of winter break, we allow people to put them in over the month of December when they're home in January. But otherwise, they're going to be outside and locked. And so it's a theft of opportunity. People might want to consider getting a Long Beach Transit card. There's a discount and they can be purchased at our cashier's window. It's a pretty good discount. I think it's about $40 for the whole semester, which, if depending on how often you use it, can be quite the savings. So we encourage that. We have bike share programs and then Uber and Lyft sites. So a student doesn't really need to have a vehicle if they live here. If you want Uber to pick you up, you can say, pick me up at Parkside Village, and they know where that is. It's right on one of the Uber and Lyft sites. Next slide. Thank you. I do this. This is I don't know how many I've done. I've done them a lot. So I've done a lot of these and I feel like I go through them quickly, but I'm here to answer some questions. Go ahead, Marvin.
No worries, Corey. You did an amazing job, and we actually don't have too many questions, but hey, it's all right. So one question that we actually received from Julie out on Facebook, they said, my child was not given a dorm this semester, still waitlisted around number 250. If he cancels his application now, will he be given a refund for the 250 fee?
Yes. So there are two ways. If a student wants to cancel now, they can get their 250 back, or they can stay on the wait list. And we will just, if we never offer them a room, we will in the fall semester refund that 250. There are pros and cons to both of those. If he's made other plans, he or she's made other plans, then that would make sense. It would go ahead and ask for that refund. If they haven't and they're like living at home, but they'd still like to live on campus, they can stay on the wait list as long as they want. And into the fall, we will have people who don't show up on move-in day. It's crazy to me. We're actually calling a bunch of students right now who haven't signed up for their move-in time, just to sort of shake out. Is there anyone who's not coming? You know, and that's why they haven't followed up. Most of the time, it's students who haven't been watching their email. But you can stay on as long as you want. And again, as long as we don't offer you a room, we'll refund that. And then the next question is, what about spring semester? So in end of September, October, we clear the wait list. Again, we refund to whoever we need to refund to. And then we open up the application for spring only. And again, same deal. It happens in about end of October, beginning of November. Students can apply. We generally have about a couple hundred rooms that open up, or beds that open up in January. And so we can welcome some students in the January semester.
Awesome, thank you, Corey. And once again, folks, for those that haven't asked questions yet, in the event you want to ask a question, all you have to do is click on the Q&A button that's at the very bottom of your screen by your toolbar, and then you'll be able to ask your question. Another question that was asked, that was already answered though, was, do they have bathrooms in their rooms?
So most of our residence halls are shared restrooms that are down the hall or shared by a suite of people, maybe up to about 10 or 12 people. The exceptions to those are the rooms at Beachside, which actually has Jack and Jill restrooms. So there's 3 people live in one side of the room and 2 people on the other, and they share the bathroom in the middle. They each have their own sink, but they have the toilet and shower that are shared in the middle. And then there's about 60 beds in Parkside North that are also sort of similar to that. They have shared restrooms on the inside. I see someone, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna just throw out, I see someone who asked about an athletic dorm. We actually don't have an athletic dorm. We're not allowed to have an athletic dorm by standards of the group that we're in. So all our residence halls are the same. Students that are athletes might get scholarships to live in housing, but there is no athletic building per se.
Sounds great. I do see a question about parking at night on campus. This question usually asked that comes earlier is, how safe is it for students that live on campus to walk around at night?
Yeah, so I think the question was a couple different things. So one, there are a couple parking lots that are fairly close. So it used to be only that they allowed us in residence R1 and R2, which is the residential lots. But in the last couple of years, parking has changed their policies. And so now any general lot, which puts students a lot closer, in particular in Parkside, to their residence halls if they're in Parkside. Beachside is right there, right outside their door. And Hillside, there's a couple different G lots that put them really close to their residence halls. If a student is feeling unsafe at night, we do our best to keep our campus well lit. But if a student is just feeling a little nervous, they can call the campus police non-emergency line. And we have students that are campus security officers who will walk or will drive a student to a location. So if there's any concern late at night, they can have that service provided to them.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's see, you have another question from Facebook World. Do you have to reapply for housing each semester or just once a year if you're not on the wait list?
Yep, just once a year. If you got into to housing at this point, you're good for the fall and spring semester. Again, that spring application only are for people who didn't get in, or we have transfer students that come in the spring semester. It gives them an opportunity to get into housing in those empty spaces that, again, we'll have some students who choose that college isn't for them, or they'll make a decision that they want to stay at home, or they decide to go to a different school, or unfortunately, some of them might not do academically well enough to stay in school. So we always have some openings in the spring, but a student who's in the fall, they're good for the whole year. And then you reapply. I will mention that applications, as I mentioned, the wait list, we have a smaller percentage of our students that live with us that are returners than new students. It's about 600, 700 students that are returners, and the rest of our up to 3,200 students, so about 2,600 of them are first year students. And so when that application comes live next year, it's important for students to get in right away, because it is sort of first come, first serve.
Awesome, thank you for that. Let's see. Is the key to locks of double occupancy for the room and any passage doors only, please?
Okay, I'm not exactly sure if I'm answering the question, but your ID card is your key in a sense to all the buildings, to your rooms, to your suite. So it's all one key, and it's programmed to you. And so, like if you're in building A, that key will get you into the building. It'll get you into your suite. It'll get you into your room. So it's the same key for all three of those things. And you just hold it up to the door. There's a little spot on the door and it'll blink green, and you'll know that the door is open. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. To elaborate what Corey is saying is the access to the building, everybody who's living in the building has access to the building. Then those that are in the same suites will have access to their suite door. Then down to student rooms, only the 2 students living in that room would have access to their room.
Thanks, Rashawn. He said that better than I did. I appreciate it. Helpful.
Hey, it's a power team here, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see. Are there any workshops that students go through for roommate conflict in the event that they get into a fight with their roommate?
So not necessarily. I mentioned the roommate agreements, which we do at the very beginning, and then we, if they have an issue, we encourage them to obviously speak to each other first. But if they have a conflict that they can't resolve on their own, then we involve the RAs, and we go back to those roommate agreements and we amend them if we need to, and we talk through what those challenges might be. It's really surprising to me. I'm not going to say that we don't have roommates that don't work out, but the majority of the time, based on those, when people did their applications, they were able to share some of the information about themselves and the ability to choose their own roommates. We really don't have a ton of serious roommate conflicts, but if we do, we have all sorts of levels. So I didn't mention earlier, so I mentioned we have RAs who are undergraduates who live in the buildings, and we also have graduate students who, if things need to be escalated, can go to a graduate student. And then we have professional staff that live in the residence halls as well. And so there are at least 3 levels of people that can help with a conflict and help resolve it before it comes up to our office, which then is a whole nother level. Other questions?
Yes, there's a few of them on Facebook. Let's see. I know that my student didn't get off the waitlist this semester, so will they have priority for next semester then?
So we wipe clean the application process, but as soon as the application's open again, usually it's the end of October, beginning of November, they want to get their application in. That's again, it's a first come, first serve type of situation. So the sooner the better for that situation. If they're getting nervous, they should reach out to our office maybe about the middle of October and just confirm when it starts so they can be one of the first people to get an application in.
Awesome, thank you, Corey. There's a question here from a parent that's saying, or just sorry. So my student met with their guidance counselor, and their guidance counselor said that they should save their money instead of living on campus because, in their experience, it wasn't always worth the money. Would you recommend that my student live at home all 4 years, or what would you recommend?
Well, so you're asking the guy that would say, who honestly, my life was transformed because I lived on campus. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I hadn't. So, the evidence across the nation says that students who live on campus are more likely to graduate on time, more likely to be retained, or more likely to feel connected to campus, are more likely to have better grades, and are generally just have a higher satisfaction with their experience. So that's national, and I think that we fall into that same category. So for me, the thing is that the couple things that living at home changes for a student. So one, this is that chance for a student to learn a little bit about how to live on their own, to get ready for that step at the end of college when they're going to be officially on their own, probably, out taking a new job and working in a new city or whatever the case might be. So this gives them that little bit of a training for that. The other thing that just happens to be true is it gives them an opportunity to take a break from some of the stresses of home. So I don't know about you all, but when I'm home, even as an adult, my parents are always, oh, we need you to go do this, or we need you to go do that. When you're living on campus, you get to sort of shape your own day and your own experience, which I think is helpful. I also think when it comes to commuting, if you think about commuting, it depends on how far you're commuting, but that time that you lose in the commute, that time that you lose where you're sort of like, I don't know where to go in between classes, and you're sort of stuck. A lot of our students go to the student union, which is a great resource for our students, but is that the best place for them? It'd be better potentially for them to be able to go home and take that nap in the middle of the afternoon if that's what they want to do, or study in the place that they feel most comfortable. So not at all surprised. I'm a big proponent. I would challenge that guidance counselor.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna share a story. My guidance counselor told me to not move to the dorms my first year, and that was one of my biggest regrets during my undergrad. I really wish that I had had the opportunity and had someone tell me what Corey says to live on campus. And I moved out my second year from home. I lived in Long Beach, and I never looked back. It's an amazing experience. It helps your students grow in a phenomenal way, and they will not regret it in any way. And if you give them that little push to push them out the door, that's even better. But as long as they know that if something does go wrong, you're there to support them, but give them that little push to find their way a little bit as well.
If you go to, so I forgot to mention this, there's two things. If you go to the parent and family link on our website, if you go to csulb.edu/housing, on the left, it says parent and family, or parent and guardians. If you go there, there's a bunch more information. And one of the things in there is a couple of videos about, one's about residential dining, one is from me talking a little more about the structure of housing and sort of how that works, and one is sort of advice to parents, and a little bit about letting go. So you might want to check out those resources. The other thing that's really important that I didn't mention earlier is the communication log. So we know, and that we communicate directly with students, and we all know that our students sometimes don't share information with their parents and their guardians. And so we have started the process of, anytime we have a mass email, that we send an email to everyone, we log it on our website for parents and family to be able to keep track of what's going on. And that's updated every time we send one of those mass emails. So if you feel like you don't know what's going on, and your student isn't forthcoming in that way, you can check out the website and see the communication.
Awesome, thank you, Corey. All right, folks, we have time for a few more questions. Don't forget to enter them into the Q&A portion in the Zoom portal. And then folks who watch you guys on Facebook, same thing, just leave your question in the comment area. All right, give it a few more minutes for a few more questions. But let's see. A common question that we get as well, Corey, is how long will we have as parents and families to help our students move in during beach days?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there really isn't a limit per se. What we do ask is when a student first moves in, we generally ask one person to stay with the car. The student will go to the building and check themselves in, and then they'll come back to their car. And generally, hopefully with some help from some of our student assistants, we'll unload the car and get all their stuff up to their room. And we'll ask that parent or whoever stayed with the car to go ahead and move a little bit further away from the building so we can bring in someone else close up. So that first move is pretty fast. We want to get everyone to get their stuff up into the room, and then the parents can come back and they can go in and they can spend time. I always say that parents, mothers in particular, feel the need to make that bed. It might be the only time that bed is ever made, but it is something that people feel comfortable doing, and I understand that. My mom would do the same thing. So yeah, at that point, you're free to come and go as you want. I do ask though the same thing. If you we know you're going to run out to Target. There's a couple Targets that are very, very close to campus. You're going to run to Target. You're going to go to Walmart. You're going to go places, the dollar store, and you're going to pick up stuff that you didn't realize. Oh, my kid could really use this in their room. We just ask when you come back with those one or two things to not park in that sort of prime parking spot, to again just carry those things in. Hopefully they shouldn't be too heavy or overwhelming for you. And then also on move-in day, there's two other things to note. We have the bookstore bash. So it's for students and parents and family to go up to the bookstore. It's a great time to get your CSUB mom or CSUB grandma shirt or whatever the case might be. They also do some raffles and some giveaways, which is a lot of fun. And then after that, to be honest, everything else that we have is really aimed at students. So it's up to you whether you want to say goodbye then, or if you want to wait until the next morning and come back to campus and say goodbye to your son or daughter that next day. It's really up to you. But again, we have plenty for them to do in the evenings. And I encourage you to figure out a strategy, a way that in a time that you're going to feel comfortable sort of cutting that apron string.
Awesome. This will be actually the last question today.
Okay.
So this question comes from Michelle. Do we have to pay for parking on move-in day?
Another great question, and it actually makes me think of something else too. No, so parking is free in the designated lots. So if you go to the website for move-in, you can see which lots are designated for move-in. It's pretty much all the lots close to the residence halls. And so parking is free on that day. The other thing I forgot to mention is on move-in day, we also have free meals for the students. So a student can swipe, I think it's up to 8 people. Again, we're only asking you to bring 3 move-in people, but you can go and do a swipe in and get a bite to eat at the dining hall, and that's covered by our office. So 2 things there that are free, and almost never ever else are going to be free. So enjoy those things. Thanks so much, Marvin. Thanks everyone for your time today.
Of course, y'all. And with that being said, folks, we'll go ahead and conclude today's question Q&A. But before we head out, you know, sometimes you all remember questions while you're on the drive home, at work, or whatever the case is. In the event that you think of a question, go ahead and call our office here at the PFO office so we can help you all out. Our number and contact is on the screen. So in the event that you get lost or don't know where to begin, start with our office and we'll be able to help you out. Along with that, we are a learning institution. Go ahead, so please go ahead and take out your phones and click on and take a picture of the QR code on the screen. It'll take you a quick survey, and this link is actually available in the chat as well. So you'll be able to actually let us know how we're doing and what we can do to improve and what we can do to make these webinars a lot better for you. Before we head out though, I want to give Corey and Rashawn the big thanks for being here today with us and answering all those questions, and give you both the opportunity to share any words of advice or any words of wisdom to our families before obviously the semester starts, dorm move-in, and anything else you all want to share.
So first off, I want to say that trust that you brought up your son or your daughter to make good decisions. If they make some mistakes along the way, that's okay. That's what we're all there for, to assist. But the other piece is, and it goes back, I'm stuck on that guidance counselor question earlier. Sometimes people will say, oh, well, don't bother getting involved that first semester because you have so much transition to go. I give the exact opposite. Get involved. Encourage your students to throw themselves into everything full throat, because otherwise it's so much harder. It's so much harder after a group is already organized to later on in the semester or later on in the year try to become part of that group. So if there's a club that's interesting to them, get involved. Sign up for a bunch of things. You can wean some of those things off. I as a freshman signed up for a ton of things, and then after going to a few meetings, I was like, that Spanish club, that wasn't for me, but boy, I really like that I was part of that singing group or whatever the case might be. Make those choices. It's better to let go of activities than it is to sign in later on. So get involved. And then Rashawn, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate what Corey said. I lived in the halls. I've been part of the halls, and has been pretty much a lot of my life. It's important to get involved, meet people. There's also week of welcome that the school does. I think it's usually the first or second week of school, where they'll have clubs and all these other clubs and organizations getting together to just let people know that they are around. That's another good place to check out for students to see what the campus offers. So definitely be involved, and whether it be in residence hall events or just meeting other organizations on campus.
Fantastic. And once again, thank you, Corey and Rashawn. You've both been amazing, and we could not have done any of these webinars without your help. That being said, folks, just want to say thank you all again. We hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves. And with that being said, Go Beach.
Bye, folks.